Very good. Thank you, Rob. We are now back in open session and I can report that we only discussed the item that was listed for us to go into closed session. So with Pat's report, we've had a closed session discussion on some legal points. Is there anything further that council wishes to discuss on that particular matter? Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. I think this, when council asked for this report to come forward, it was, way time flies, it's probably a couple of years ago now. We had a delegation from the agricultural community back in this area, and they highlighted a lot of the issues with the terrain. I mean, if this was flat ground, I don't think the request would ever come forward. It would be, we can't afford it, and we move on. We can drive around a concession block. There are issues back in this area with, quite steep hills. And it is at the request of the agricultural community, transferring, their crops at harvest time. And it's a safety issue, as they've told us in that presentation a couple of years ago. So that's really where the request goes. Chatsworth was not willing to write a blank check. When we first heard about this back in 2018, we weren't prepared to write a blank check. The whole environmental assessment process is very complicated, and they can give you a range, but they can't tell you, or we weren't told which option you'd actually have to go with. So, and those ranges were between $800,000 and, 3 million. So if I was being asked personally, would I support spending 500,000? I would openly say yes, I would be. If I was asked to spend 2 million, I couldn't justify $2 million. So that was the issue Chatsworth Council had. We weren't told what that price tag would be because there's too many unknowns. So that's part of the dilemma here. I know Meaford's worked hard, and it is at the request of a lot of good agricultural people back in that community, and I certainly feel for them. I would like to see the county, at least between the county, Meaford and Chatsworth, get to a point where we could nail down what the cost would be. They're not asking for 2-lane bridges. They're asking for a way to get their materials back and forth between farmland. So that being said, if we could nail down what the options are, 50 years ago, you would have went in there and put in a couple of culverts. There would have been no oceans and fisheries, and the cost would have been minimal. But you bring in all these other authorities, and the costs are driven up, and it's affecting all of us that have a lot of bridges. We've got over 50 bridges in the township, and every one costs a lot more money because we have to do things differently. I don't know how long that's sustainable, but we got to keep most of them open. So anyways, my ask would be that our friends at the county here do help the agricultural community in at least investigating what potential options there might be. That would be the best case scenario. I don't think any decision could be made today because we don't know what the price tag is. I would never sign off on a price tag that I wasn't aware of. Those are my thoughts, Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Councillor Mackey. Councillor Keaveney.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and I appreciate your comments, Councillor Mackey, and agree. We have not established a price. And I think it behooves us now to go back and conduct a second EA process, because a lot has changed in those years, and to come out with a problem statement that suggests that we want to get these bridges open and that we need a solution, and hopefully an affordable one. And yes, it would be ideal if we could all work together. That would really please the agricultural community and certainly would please us in Meaford in particular. But I think there's information that we don't have in front of us right now that is required before we can make such a decision. So that will certainly be our recommendation back to our own council, is that second EA be completed so that we have something concrete to work with. And then perhaps we can come to an understanding, or at least have an additional discussion about how we might move forward.
Councillor Eccles, you were next.
To Councillor Mackey, if you want another 50 bridges and then you would come close to how many West Gray has, would be welcome to give some to you as well, too. You're very correct. Well, we can give some to Southgate as well, too. I know Barb would certainly love that. So does a couple of other things. I hesitate for the county to get involved in this because of all the information I've heard, and certainly from Director Hoy. In my mind, the county's got no involvement. This bridge is one of those things that's close to a county or to a municipal boundary, but it's not a county bridge. And I leading the county into having staff go through and determine what the cost is and everything else. I'm going to look towards Mike and say it's almost leading us to a legal thing that, yes, we do pose some responsibility. I don't, in seeing all of it, I can't go there with that. The last time I think that the county was involved in one of these disputes might have been with another county to the west, if anybody can remember that one, and 2 municipalities. And the county was very clear at the end of the day, when the bridge was finally built, that it was absolutely not the county had anything to do with it. So understanding that municipality of West Gray in a lower tier has, I believe, I'll look to my compatriot, but I think we have 6 bridges right now that are closed. And the traffic volumes and the ability for commerce to continue on. It may be a slight inconvenience, but it's a greater inconvenience on the rest of the taxpayers to come forward to be able to maintain the infrastructure that we had built 75 to 90 years ago. And we can't maintain that. And in this case, as I said, the county, in my mind, as hard as it is not responsible for any of this.
Councillor Greg.
Well, I agree with Councillor Eccles. I mean, we're representing the county here. We're not getting involved in what's a municipal matter. You could make a strong argument coming off Councillor Mackey's comments that there is a component of the Holland Sydenham town line, a couple concessions to the west, which is a seasonal road. So if you had a member of the agricultural community purchases on one or the other end of that seasonal road, and there's a request comes forward for maintenance of that road through the winter, for upgrading, does it now become a county matter because it's a matter of convenience for the individuals that may live or benefit from such an upgrade? This is very similar. It just happens to be a bridge as opposed to a road that's only open from May till October. It's not county responsibility. I thank the materials. I thank the individuals who have provided the materials. The materials that's been provided from staff is sufficient for me to generate my opinion off of. There's no need for any further investment from the county into this matter. And I'll leave it at that. I mean, I know individuals who have driven those hills with heavy trucks. They're not the world's best roads, but they're drivable. There's been an accident, but you can't blame an accident on a road detour with any specifics whatsoever, especially if potentially there's charges laid resulting from the accident. So for those reasons, it's not a county matter. I don't think the county should be getting involved any further, and I'll leave it at that. I wouldn't support investing any further on this.
Thank you. Councillor Kentner.
Thank you, Warden. Milne, I just would suggest to you that if this were an industry, in Sound that had been shut down by a bridge closure, and it employed 29 or 59 people, and it did $16 million a year in business, and the actual business itself paid over $1 million in taxes. I think that the county would be bending over backward to take a leadership role and bring two municipalities together and work collaboratively to try and resolve the situation. So agriculture is the lifeblood of Grey County. And I think we should, consider that fact before we turn our back on some very, very important producers in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kentner. Any further discussion? Okay, not seeing any. We'll move on. Is there any direction anybody wishes to take? Okay, not seeing any. Other business. Oh, wait, we have the terms of reference for the Ag Advisory Committee. Councillor McQueen, you asked that to have pulled, so I'll ask you to move that. Was someone else second that, please? Councillor Kent, or Keaveney, rather. Councillor McQueen, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Warden, and thanks for your diligence. Going through this, we had a Grey County Federation of Ag meeting last night, and I know the recommendation is to take this terms of reference back to the Agricultural Advisory Committee for comments, or however they wish to comment. The comment that came back last night was so looking at the redoing of the terms of reference, and that's on page 63 of 81 on my device. I'm not sure how that works for everybody else. Certainly a warden and 4 members of county council appointed annually. Question about that, should that be for 2 years? The other one is 5 organizational members and then 5 public members. The part that sort of got a little bit of discussion was around Grey County will endeavor to provide notice of calls for membership to local stakeholder organizations such as Grey County Federation of Ag, Ontario Federation of Ag, Christian Farmers, National Farmers Union, and Grey County Agricultural Services where possible. So the discussion that came back from last night's Grey County Federation of Ag was it represents probably over 1,200 farmers in Grey County, the largest organization within Grey County, and which represents a lot of farmers. And to suggest that it possibly could represent, or the clarity is is the clarity here that it will include, which then will make this membership of 19 people, if I read that right. If I count the 4 and 5 and 5, and then Grey County Federation of Ag, Federation of Agriculture, Christian Farmers, National Farmers, and Grey County Ag Services. So that makes an organization of 19 members. Is that how it's being read? And is that the idea then?
I will ask Sarah to speak to this because it was her that was working on it.
Through you, Mr. Warden and committee, thank you for inviting me to address you today. Thank you very much for your questions. With respect to the warden's membership and the other committee members appointed to the committee, it has been our previous practice that because the term of the warden is annual and the committee appointments from members of council are handled annually, that has continued into this version of the terms of reference. With respect to your additional questions, it is intended to propose a membership of 15. So 5 public members, 5 organizational members, and 5 members of county council. With the understanding that while some local stakeholder organizations are recognized in this document, we want to leave flexibility within the language to encourage participation from other local organizations should Some of these individuals not have capacity to participate in a given term, should interest change, items of that nature. So just not painting ourselves into any kind of requirements with respect to membership, while we do recognize the role and importance of these organizations to the local community and making sure that they are spoken to here.
Thank you for that, Sarah, and through you, Mr. Warden. Well, I would say that that's not going to probably fly very well with the Grey County Federation of Ag representation, just from the sense that it was sort of left out the last time. And I think probably the early days of the creation of the Agricultural Advisory Committee was probably at that time the chair, Hugh Simpson, with conversation with the CAO that brought this forward and was very instrumental of trying to bring this Agricultural Advisory Committee together. So as it was iterated again last night, Grey County Federation Ag represents over 1,200 farms. And it just seems to be that wouldn't be an automatic, that you would have at least an organization, part of your Agricultural Advisory Committee, that's representing 1,200 plus farms in Grey County.
Tara, do you want to weigh in on this, or please?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Warden. Just further to Sarah's comment, she noted that the membership, the intention of these terms of reference is that they were really opened up for the new term. There was a lot of consideration and feedback that we received over the course of the last council term from this committee and some outside stakeholders, that they felt that there was some representation missing. So that's been addressed, we feel, in this terms of reference, and it has opened up the opportunity for many stakeholders to apply. So I would just encourage all of those local stakeholders that wish to apply to please do so. And there is an application process that will be coming from economic development staff. So that is the opportunity and the spot to demonstrate the need for that representation on this committee from each stakeholder organization.
Okay. Oh, Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you. And if I might just further add that the language in the terms of reference indicates that we give preference especially to organizational representatives that represent the kind of local sector stakeholders. So while not requiring specific organizations, we definitely keep in mind that local presence, and we'll be giving those preferential priority once we undertake the appointment process. So.
Randy?
Yeah, just further to Tara and Sarah's comments, and this is similar to what we did last time. We sent out specific when we opened up that application process. We notified all those ag organizations that the application process is underway, and encouraging folks to apply in terms of to make sure we have that representation. So we'll do the same for sure this time around, and we hope, like Sarah said, that we'll have representatives from each of those 5 key organizations that are listed in the terms of reference.
Councillor DeBreen, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Warden Milne, and through you, I did want to thank staff for responding to some of the concerns expressed in the previous term with regard to membership. They have opened up the number of individual organizations that would be represented on the committee. So I appreciate that. I can appreciate the difficulty in ensuring that the invitation to apply actually reaches the organization or the sector. And through you, Warden Milne, how is that invitation circulated? Is it simply we put it out on our website and hope that they see it, or do we target invitations to those organizations? That would be my first question. And Second of all, the organization has to take responsibility for meeting the deadline, and my understanding in conversations with some was that perhaps they did not see the invitation in time and were overlooked. So I think my main question is how do you endeavor to meet those obligations of notification? Is there maybe more firm language that could provide a better commitment? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Warden. Yes, thank you very much for the question. By endeavor, staff intends to say that we will make all best efforts to ensure that local stakeholders and folks who are known to us and interested parties are made aware. We will be working with communications staff to make sure that the call for submissions is publicized. We are using our notice bylaw to kind of craft that structure and timeline. While committee appointments are not specifically spoken to under the notice bylaw, it is our kind of example for these types of things. And then our intention with naming some of these organizations here in the terms of reference is to acknowledge their history with the committee, their importance to the local context, and to say that we will be ensuring and reaching out to our contacts to ensure that they're aware of the appointment process and key deadlines and steps for submission.
Thank you, Sarah. Certainly, everybody now should know after the last term, because there was some oversights this time around, everybody's aware of the committee and spread the word by all means. Okay, all those in favor? Oh, wait, Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. So with these memberships or these applications for memberships going out, how will it be determined? Will it be the 15 voting members that have already been established? Will they make the determination on acceptance of new applicants, or how is those applicants going to be vetted, I guess, is my question.
Good question, Sarah.
Through you, Mr. Warden, thank you for the question. My understanding is that once the application period has ended, the submissions will be reviewed by key staff. So for example, our economic development officer specifically tied with agriculture, Philly Markowitz, and other kind of key county stakeholders to review where, assuming that we have an abundance of submissions, they will be ranked in accordance with the wording in the terms of reference, giving preference to representation from the local context, to ensure a variety of, for example, producers, suppliers, operators, owners, just making sure that those items are covered. And so with staff's expertise and the flexibility but guidance laid out in the terms of reference, we would then make a recommendation to council for appointment.
Councillor Ackles.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and I'll make this brief. How many agricultural organizations are there registered or recognized in Grey County? Is the first one. We're going to take 5 of those, from what I understand, and it will come back. It'll be a staff recommendation from what you've just said, Sarah. But it's this group right here around the horseshoe that makes that vote on who is going to be on there. So it is a campaign process. Okay, that's the first one. But out of how many groups do we have?
If I may, I think we used the number 5 to show the number of, general farm organizations that the province recognizes. And I think a report would come back to council should our numbers in some situation exceed the what's been proposed in the terms of reference. Otherwise, I think in the interests of time, we will simply roll forward, get a meeting set up with the people who have applied that group then, once formally established, will have an opportunity to revisit the terms of reference again and suggest any adjustments that they'd like to see.
Okay. Sure. Now you've made me lose everything and I don't even know where I was gonna go now. Down the road, so we're only gonna go with the 5 farm organizations that are recognized, because I'm thinking beef producers, lamb producers, goat producers, apple producer organizations. Those ones are going to be in there as well. That's what I was looking for. My estimation in Grey County, there's probably 25, but the whole idea is we need some representation for this. The other aspect was, I'm not understanding in the motion why this is being sent back, the terms of reference, who's it being sent back? The county is organizing this group. Here's the term of reference. Here's what we want you to do. Like sending the terms of reference back to everybody out there to put their input onto it. It's like hiring somebody, come on in for a week, walk around the company here, and then you tell me what you're going to do for me. I thought that the committee were looking. I couldn't support the motion the way it is with it going back out. Here's the terms of reference. Here's what we want you to do to be able to bring back information for this group on the Ag Society. Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Warden. So a couple of things here. With regards to the timing, because this terms of reference proposes an increase to the number of members on the committee, we do procedurally want to ensure that council is supportive of that direction before we proceed with appointments. We don't want to give folks the idea that we have a capacity that we don't have. Also, the language within the terms of reference helps us guide our appointment process. I would say that it has previously been our practice to bring the terms of reference to the first meeting of the committee so that they are able to make themselves formally familiar with the document that will be guiding them in their work over the term, as well as give staff any feedback that they might initially have with respect to the document and its proposed wording. They are, of course, welcome to raise any proposed changes throughout the term as they become familiar with the document and their responsibilities on the committee. With respect to the questions regarding the number of organizational members versus the organizations present in the community, the terms of reference is currently proposed is in response to the community interest we've received thus far. And there's nothing limiting council to expanding that or, amending it in the future as staff receive expressions of interest. I think that designated staff representatives and designating organizational time and potentially, resources to have staff work on things can be a kind of a unique scenario to work out in an organization. And so this terms of reference just aims to recognize the expressions of interest that the county has received thus far.
Councillor Matrosovs.
Thank you. Thank you, Warden. Through you, the Warden, could staff please clarify then, the Ecological Farmers Association of Ontario, that's to which I belong. So I'm a member of that. It's not listed as one of the stakeholders in the listing, but I know that it has no Grey County chapter. So my question through you, the chair, is this delineation between the organizational members and the public members, does that mean if another member of the Ecological Farmers Association wanted to apply, they would need to be considered as a public member as opposed to an organization member? I'm just would just like clarification. Is that the delineation that there's no Grey County chapter of our much smaller membership? Because I'm really appreciating the comments that have come from members of the Grey County Farmers Association about the 1,200 members. You know, I think that voice has to be there at the table somehow. So I'm just trying to understand, but I don't believe that the Christian Farmers Association actually has a Grey County chapter as well. I believe they operate more on a provincial basis. So could I please ask clarification? If somebody were part of a farm organization that is not within the list that comes in the paragraph afterwards, is it because they don't have a Grey County chapter, and would they need to therefore apply as one of the 5 public member spots?
There.
Through you, Mr. Warden, thank you for the question. The organizational list currently contained within the terms of reference is in response to the organizations who have previously had representation within the Agricultural Advisory Committee. The language within the terms of reference has been structured to allow other organizations to apply. It does not assume that any organization with past connection to the committee necessarily wants to continue forward. And the terms of reference aims to codify that we will give preference to representation for local focused organizations. And I would just further add that if somebody was a representative of an organization and they intend to participate in the Agricultural Advisory Committee to represent that view of a part of that organization, they would need to apply as an organizational member. However, if they are also a producer or a farmer or a landowner with respect to the kind of priorities laid out in the terms of reference, nothing would prohibit them from applying under that hat.
Okay, thank you, Warden.
Very good. Thank you. I think we've had pretty good discussion on this. We're not going to bury nuclear waste. We're asking for membership on a Ag Advisory Committee. So I'm going to call the question unless somebody stridently objects.
I didn't know that we had it moved and seconded, but I would move that leaving out the word considered in the last sentence of the motion.
Yeah, it was moved and seconded, but I will take the amendment. Who would care to second that amendment? If anyone. Councillor Bordignon, sorry, I see your hand there. Thank you very much. Discussion on the amendment. Certainly, I'll get Sarah or Tara to read the amendment.
That the motion be amended to strike out the term considered in the 3rd clause. So it would now read that report received, that county council endorse the terms of reference, and that the terms of reference be reviewed by the Agricultural Advisory Committee at its first meeting.
Does that read the way you wish it to?
Yep.
Very good. I'll call. Councillor DeBreen, go ahead.
Through you, Warden Milne, the question on the amendments is that doesn't removing the word consider does not preclude the committee, the advisory committee, from making recommendations to county council in the future.
That would be absolutely correct.
Thank you.
It does not preclude them. In fact, any committee could ask for change. All right, I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? I'm going to call that carried. Okay, we'll move on. Any further discussion on the amended motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the amended motion? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. Other business, any other business come before this meeting? Not seeing any notices of motion? Nope. Someone care to move adjournment? Councillor Carlton and Councillor Mackey. All those in favor? That is carried. We now stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
What do you want to say about the MPA workshop then?
Sorry.